Okay, folks, I think I have my camera. Oh, there it is. Ah, there we are. Hey, happy crappy hour. Happy Thursday to you guys. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. So welcome to Happy Crappy Hour. Welcome to Escape from Crazytown. We have a great topic today, but I do want to catch up with you guys and see how things are going, and I'm going to let you guys hop on, give you a few seconds to do that. In the meantime, I just want to explain that Happy Crappy Hour is about catching up, but also learning from each other. So that we share what our crappies are this week, which was were the things that went wrong. So we want to stop doing those things, right? Things that didn't go well and learn from them. But also we want to share our happies. So what did go well? What were good things? What did we implement, right, in our healing journey that's working? And we want to keep on doing those things. So I want to talk about what my happies and crappies are this week. I hate to drone on about this, but man, I have been getting knocked down with one illness after another, and I don't know what's going on other than maybe I should not be hanging out with little kids. Maybe that's what's going on. So, yeah, so that was my crappy, and I got to learn from that. So maybe this week I'm not going to be hanging out with any little kids. And then my happy though is, let me see, lots of good things always happen. I did get to spend some time with my husband this week because he was snowed in from work. So that was cool. That was really awesome. Really enjoyed that, where we got to get up leisurely in the morning and he didn't have to rush out the door and he was able to work from home. So that was awesome. So you guys, today I do want to see what your happies and your crappies are. So if you're getting on, that's great. If you want to share what's been going on with you, I'd love to hear that. But I want to start our topic so that we can start this video, I guess. All right. So our topic today is about arguing with the narcissist. Because at some point you are going to argue with the narcissist, and we get caught into this endless loop because they don't argue fair, okay, fairly. They don't. They use different or specific tactics, and we're going to go over those today. And we need to know how to respond to that. How in the world do we have a disagreement with a narcissist and still not lose our minds, right? Because it feels like total crazy town when you get into an argument with a narcissist. So today, let me see. I wanted to say, first of all, you know that it's hard to argue with a narcissist because, first of all, they don't compromise. They don't. They can't see that they could possibly be wrong. Even when they are completely wrong, they're so wrong. Their memory of what happened is completely false, right? They rewrite history, and they'll argue with you about what happened, and it didn't happen that way. So how in the world do you argue with somebody who's like that, right? How do you get them to see your side, your perspective, for one, and then how do you get them to see that they are wrong? Well, I mean, I don't want to give up on this, but I know the short answer is you just can't argue with a narcissist. But I think that there are things that we can do to kind of control the damage, right? Do a little damage control, and also get the narcissist to back off a little bit, right? And part of that comes from your own growth, comes from your ability to set boundaries with consequences, like rules of engagement, all right? You can do that. You can actually set rules of engagement. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist, or if you are working with one, if you're married to one, if your child is a narcissist, right? If your parent is a narcissist, if you're married to one. So you can set rules of engagement. Now, if you just came upon a narcissist, never met them before, and they want to get into this argument with you, no, there's no rules there because they don't know who you are. They don't know what your standards are. They just want to win the argument. So that's completely different. That one we're going to deal with later. Actually, I can deal with that right now. That kind of a narcissist who's right in your face right away and wants to argue and they don't back down, you gray rock them. You just gray rock them. You cannot give them feedback. You cannot give them emotion because that feeds them. That tells them that you're paying attention to them. That tells them that you are actually listening to them. So you gray rock that type of a narcissist who just comes at you screaming and yelling at your face. You walk away. Obviously, you have that ability. Walk away. That type of if it's a stranger, acquaintance, someone you barely know, you have not set up your rules of engagement with that type of narcissist, then you gray rock them. Now, same thing though with the ones that you do have a relationship with. If they get to that point and they're in your face and they're screaming and yelling and whatnot, gray rock them, you walk away. All right. So that's our first tool in dealing with arguing with a narcissist who is demeaning and, yelling filthy names at you and yeah, just getting horrible. Well, you guys, I'm so glad you guys are hopping on here. Hey, Obi-Wan, good to see you. So we want to talk about setting your rules of engagement with a narcissist. You can do this if you are currently involved with one, and even if it's say you're divorced and you have joint custody of your children, and you have to see each other, you can set up rules of engagement for arguments or confrontation or disagreements with them, which is, yeah, okay, for one, if you cannot seem to have, if it's so contentious between you two, and this is in a divorce situation, then bring a mediator. Bring someone who can say, whoa, 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 back off, that type of thing. But if you cannot do that, then at least tell them these rules of engagement before you go in, which is 1, no name calling, right? 2, if you start yelling, right, getting loud enough that other people can hear, that's another one. That's unacceptable. If you are cursing and using foul language, all right, that's another one. If you're not listening and not letting me finish my sentences, right, that's another one. Okay, so consequences to these things. If they are doing these things, what do you do? What do you tell them you're going to do? So you can tell them, then I'm going to walk out of the room. I am going, we're not going to resolve this, and I'm going to do the things that are going to be beneficial to me. So we can work this out where it's beneficial to both of us and we can compromise, or I'm just going to go do the things I'm going to do. Now, you can only take that as far as the courts allow you, of course, right? And you don't want it to get to that point. Hopefully you can try to work things out. But with a narcissist, it's best to do it through a third party. It really is in that case, in a divorce case. Unless for some reason, somehow, you are able to be polite to each other. I met somebody recently who's convinced that her ex-husband's a narcissist, but I'm not too sure because she says that they can behave themselves when they're around each other. They share holidays with the kids and they're actually pleasant with one another. That is not my experience with a narcissist. Now, that might be, actually, he could be a covert narcissist. So you can do that with covert narcissists. They don't want to get into a big fight in front of everybody because they don't want to be seen as the crazy one, right? They don't want to show all of their cards. So with a covert narcissist, it's possible that you can have these disagreements to a certain degree. The covert's not going to really get into that argument with you right in front of everybody. But when they have you by yourself, they're going to go nuts. They're going to go crazy. They're going to go into these circles of arguments that make no sense. And the reason they make no sense to us is because the narcissist's goal is to win the argument no matter what. They just cannot see any other perspective but their own. They can't see that they could possibly be wrong or that you both could possibly be right, right? You both just have different ways of doing things and neither way is wrong or right. They cannot see that. They just think that their way is always best. So therefore, their way is always right. I had this argument, oh my gosh, with a narcissist who generally is a nice person. Now, it could be because I didn't get on his bad side, right? I never got onto his side where he's mad at me. And one time, actually, he got a little bit mad at me because we didn't agree on something. It was ridiculous. I think it was about sports. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. So he was arguing with me about something about sports, and I was telling him, no, he's wrong. He's just absolutely wrong because whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But he just could not accept that. So he got mad and hung up on me. But he called back later. So in this case, this guy, I never had his full blown anger at me other than hanging up on me once. But I had seen him get full on, blown out, mad, crazy at other people. So that's, by the way, a warning to us, right? When we see them doing this to other people, know that if you stay in a relationship with them, at some point, they're going to behave the same way towards you because they don't have these healthy boundaries, right? They don't see you as any different. At first, they might be nice to you because they don't know you that well yet, and they could lose you as a friend or as a partner or whatever it might be. But their colors will come through. Anyway, so for a person who argues where they just cannot see how somebody else could be right. I remember having arguments with him or disagreements, and I left because he just could not understand that he could be wrong. He could not understand, and he changed history, by the way. He changed the events of what happened, or the details of the event, right? Um, and that's when I started going, wow, okay, this is a bit of crazy town. I'm looking at this person and I'm thinking, okay, I was there. I know what was said. I know what I did. And then this person's rewriting history to tell me what I did, and it was not what I did. So, like one thing was he insisted that I slammed my car door and drove away. And I was like, no, I told this person, if you don't stop, I'm going to leave. And so he wouldn't stop his arguing, right? So I said, all right, well, I'm going to leave. And of course, he didn't want me to. He wanted to continue arguing. Oh my gosh. So, that's your boundaries tactics, okay, you guys? When you set up the rules of engagement ahead of time, you can tell them, if you start to yell, I'm going to leave. And you don't have to leave in a huff or puff or anything. You just walk out and you leave. Now, of course, they're going to say, oh, you slammed the door when you left, or, I heard the wheels squealing, or, I was like, no. That's their crazy imagination to support their view of the argument, which is so crazy, so crazy. But the best that you can do with a narcissist is you set these rules of engagement. No name calling, no raising your voice. And when we can't seem to get past something, like we can't agree, and you're not going to agree. That's the sad thing about with a narcissist. You can still have these rules of engagement. This is damage control generally, is what I'm giving you for arguing with a narcissist. There is no winning with them. There just isn't. Narcissists, a lot of people have said, make really good lawyers. I'm not saying that all lawyers are narcissistic or anything like that. I'm just saying that they argue and argue and argue. Now, I think that narcissists make terrible lawyers because they're not as convincing as they think they are. They could be very arrogant, but they are, I guess the really good ones, the really smart, really smart narcissists can be a very good lawyer. But the average narcissist just thinks that they are so brilliant that they can fool other people. And you'll see this sometimes in these psychopaths who go to court and they want to represent themselves because they don't think that a person who went all the way through law school, who's gotten their degree, who's pled many cases, and yet they don't think that this person is more capable than they are, the narcissist who's had no experience whatsoever in a court of law, right? They want to represent themselves. And there's a saying that goes, he who represents himself in court has a fool for a lawyer. And I just think it's so accurate with the narcissist. So what you're dealing with here is outside of court, in your personal life, when you're arguing with a narcissist, you're just dealing with total crazy town. excuse me, you're dealing with somebody who just won't give in, can't give up, cannot concede that they might be wrong because their ego depends on it, right? Their self-esteem depends on it. So you guys, so good to see you hopping on. Let me see here. John Daly, good morning. Obi says, I had my narc up against the wall, and it's enablers pretending to be on my side help them succeed again. Okay, I'm trying to imagine pretending to be on my side and help them succeed again. Well, I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can go into some detail about that. Obi says most third parties are enablers and flying monkeys. Oh, well, I'm talking, I see what you mean, Obi. Like because the narcissist can manipulate them. But what I mean by third party is that you have to also play by the rules of engagement, which is you cannot get all frustrated and angry. You cannot start calling them names. You can't start throwing a tantrum, which you're going to feel like because that's the atmosphere that the narcissist feels most comfortable in. When you're out of control, then they can be in control, right? They'll use force and anger and intimidation to try to control you. And when you try to use force and fear and intimidation on them, they just get bigger and bigger. So it just gets to a point where it's total nuclear fallout, right? Don't do that. That's what a mediator is there for, is to keep you calm, but also to keep them calm. It's not just a one-way thing for just you, right? It's for them as well. And if you can keep it calm, it's possible to just stay with the facts and get the disagreement resolved. All right. So, and this happens like, say, with a neighbor, if you have issues, that type of thing. But yes, sometimes it's going to feel like the third party is favoring the narcissist. But you know what? You have to go in there with what you're willing to give and what you're, and sometimes you're going to end up, it's not going to end up in your favor. It just isn't sometimes. And you have to be, I've watched some TV court cases too. And boy, those judges are rough, they just hand it down and you're like, whoa, what about, even Steven fairness thing? And they will obviously favor one over the other. And sometimes we might not think it's fair, but in those cases, you just got to be kind of careful, I guess, bringing in a mediator, I suppose. A mediator is not supposed to judge and say who's right and who's wrong and what you should agree to. A mediator is just there to make sure that you're being respectful towards each other. Okay? So if it's a flying monkey, the flying monkey is going to tell you to concede and to give in to the narcissist. That's not what a mediator is supposed to do. They're supposed to just make sure that you guys have a cordial conversation where it doesn't get out of control. All right? Otherwise, you have a judge. And if you have a judge coming in to mediate, someone who tells you, I get to choose what you guys do, then yes, you may end up having to do what the narcissist wants you to do because they are great at manipulating the judge, right? So I would not suggest that. I would suggest a mediator though. So let me see. Mike says, oh, good morning, Mike. Good to see you here. Mike says, narcissists are trying to put words in our mouths and they twist and turn everything we say. Narcissists don't like when people set a boundary with them. Absolutely right. And that's why we always have in our back pocket gray rock. Okay, we always have to have that in our back pocket where you don't go flying off like a crazy person like they are, right? And actually sometimes they just sit back and they're smug and they just smile because they love to see you start to sweat and start to go crazy. So don't do that. Instead, play the gray rock. You just go, okay, I'm not going to respond to that. Let them, and if they sit back and they're all smug, you're like, well, I guess we're not getting to anything. So maybe our conversation is over, and then walk out. Don't try to push it to try to get them to reveal their cards or to engage more. At that point, they're manipulating in a passive way, right? It's a passive aggressive move. And you're not going to get them to to engage with you or converse with you or work things out, because they already figured some stuff out in their own head, and they've made a decision already in their head what that you're wrong, and what they're going to do is just play with you now. They're just messing with you. So that can also be part of your rules of engagement when you go in as well. It's like, well, if we're not coming to an agreement and you're sitting there and I'm just sitting there, then we're just going to have to stop, because they can wait you out. Most people get more agitated the longer they sit in silence. A narcissist could possibly sit there and just wait you out until you get agitated enough to get angry, and then they come out with their claws. You don't want to do that. All right, you guys, let me see. But yeah, they do put words in our mouths too. They'll twist things around, and that's where things can get really heated. So stay calm when they tell you, well, you said this. Then say, all right, I said this, but I meant that. And if they keep sticking with, but you said, okay, I did say that, but this is what I meant. Now we're going to deal with where we are now, not from where we were then, right? Or they believed was said. And a lot of times too, they will switch it up and give a different meaning to what you said, or they just use completely different words than what you chose. In those cases, you have to say, okay, this is time to clarify then, because that's not what I meant. And if you insist on working through or working from the point of what I did not mean, then this conversation is not going anywhere. Okay, so you have to set some of these rules before you walk in for yourself as well. You have to have these tools prepared for yourself and available and at the tip of your mind before you go in. You might even want to write out some of these things so that you're ready to say that when they come back at you. But this is what you said. This is what you did. Like, but I didn't do that. This is what I actually did, or this is what I actually said. And if they cannot handle that, then say, then what do you want to do from this point on? I'm not going to go back to there, because working from that point of misunderstanding is not going to solve our problem. We have to get to a point of understanding here, and then we can work from here. And if they're not willing to do that, and they're caught up with what happened in the past, and it was so unfair, or whatever word they thought you used, or whatever meaning they thought you had, and they want to work from that, and they're not even trying to resolve anything. All they're trying to do is condemn you, right? So you can ask them, so what do you want to do from this point? What do you want to do from here? And if they say, I want you to apologize, like, all right, I apologize if I did not mean for you to take it that way. I didn't mean to come off sounding that way. Oh, it goes into cycles, by the way, you guys. If it seems to last too long, that's another thing you can go in with, by the way, is a timer. Look, I can talk about this up to this amount of time, but I cannot keep rehashing the exact same point until you're satisfied. And then we walk out of here an hour and a half later, just still frustrated over one point of misunderstanding. There's no point in that. So you can set a timer and say, okay, we'll talk about this, but we can't resolve it. You're kind of stuck with what you believed I said. I'm telling you, this is what I said. But even if I did say that, what do you want to do now? Right? What solution do you have now? So keep pulling them back into the present. Yeah. Now, this is so hard to do. And I want to tell you that in some cases where they're not a narcissist, but they behave like a narcissist, this could actually reach them. These types of things can actually reach them, and they will actually start to respond in a productive way. But to a true narcissist, it's very hard to get them to listen. It's very hard to get them to snap out of their crazy town. And they may not. So all of these things that I'm telling you might not work with the narcissist, but they're the best tools that you can use, right? At least you're equipped to go in, and when you notice the tools are not working, then you know to leave. You know to cut your losses, instead of staying there, in this crazy cycle of 2 to 3 hours of arguing with them. Now, you also have to have in your back pocket, where are you going to go? Like if you're living with them, if they're your parent, if they're your child, what do? How do you, if they're a child, then, like go to separate rooms. I'm not going to even be in the same room with you. And you have to have some consequences as a parent, right? You can take away privileges and things like that. That's another story altogether. But, and I would really highly suggest getting into family counseling or counseling for yourself, parental counseling. Like what tools can you use to best reach the child, right? So here we go. Let me see what you guys are saying. Oh yeah, Mike says, I've noticed narcs and sociopaths are con artists. Yes, they are. And Obi-Wan says, my narc was defeated and had nowhere to run. And the one I trusted screwed me over to help the narc and bury me again. Now I give up completely. Yeah. You know what? That happens to a lot of people, because some people are more loyal to the narcissist, obviously, right, than they are to us, because they feel like they're in this inner circle with the narcissist, because the narcissist bad mouths other people and they've got this person in that circle, right, where they are smearing other people and kind of like thick as thieves, if you will. And so that person will be an agent for the narcissist and will try to be your friend and their friend, but really they're more loyal to the narcissist. So whatever you're saying to them, they're going to take back to the narcissist. Or they might be the narcissist and they're taking it back to this other person who then, that's how they triangulate, and so the other person now doesn't want anything to do with you. It's horrible. It is horrible. Obi-Wan says, oh, I'm sorry, Jihad says, I'm learning to not trust people when it comes to the narcissist. Don't let them creep in or allow others to get involved. Yeah. They might have empathy for the narc. Yeah. And they will be manipulated by them to help them out. Yep, very true. Because the narcissist plays the victim quite well, extremely well. And people tend to think, oh, I feel so bad for you. Your ex or your mom or your whoever is so terrible. You're the victim. And of course, people want to protect the victim. So they're going to be a little more loyal to the victim than they would to who the victim is accusing, right? Of victimizing them. Yeah. Okay. Jihad says, for me, I have kids and I can't allow anyone to put them in harm and danger, so I'm staying strong and firm and never allow anyone to cross boundaries. That's terrific. That's really good. Keep to these boundaries because they're healthy, right? They're healthy for you. It does nobody any good to have the narcissist go absolute crazy, right? To just go berserk with their anger. And especially doesn't help your kids, because what if you're exchanging kids and now the narc has gotten to this argument with you and they're blowing up and now they're going to take the kids with them in their car. They're probably going to be screaming and yelling at the kids. You don't want that. So you have to keep these rules of engagement for yourself as well, because you don't want to escalate, right? You don't want to escalate the anger inside of that narcissist. You want to keep things as calm as you can. And if you have to go gray rock to do that, then go gray rock, right? You don't want to respond to them, but you also don't want to frustrate them further. So you don't respond in kind. You don't respond with anger or frustration like they are. You respond with calmness and let them know that we can talk about this later, or this is not a good time to do it because it's your turn to take the kids. It's not a good time. You're using up your time. Anyway, yeah. So let's go through some of the tactics and things that the narcissist uses when they argue with us. They are going to use guilt. All right. They're going to tell you, if you love me, you would do this, right? You would do something illegal for them. You would do something that you don't want to do for yourself. Say, jumping out of an airplane, right? Like, if you love me, you would go jumping out of an airplane with me. No, I love you, but I will not do that. So, I hate to say it also, but I had read comments before from viewers that talked about in the bedroom. They'll say, if you love me, you would do this. And they really didn't want to. So, how do you respond back to a narcissist that uses that kind of guilt? Well, you turn it on them. If they love you, they would not ask you to do this. If they love you, they would not ask you to do things that are illegal that would get you thrown into jail. Like, why would they risk your safety or your freedom if they loved you? They would not get you involved. If they loved you, they would not ask you to do something that's painful or horrible for you, right? You need to stand up for yourself and let them know, you know what? Love goes two ways. So I do love you, but I will not do these things. Another thing is they will use that to enable themselves, okay? If you love me, you would lend me more money. If you loved me, you would not kick me out. If you loved me, trying to think of other enablers, you wouldn't call the police on me. All right. That's enabling them. So you got to be careful with that. When they are, so you can't really turn that on them, right? You can't turn it on them and say, no, if you love me, then you wouldn't ask me to borrow money. What you do there, though, is you have strong boundaries with consequences. You stand your ground and you say, no, it has nothing to do with love. That has to do with, these are my boundaries. I already loaned you money, and until you pay it back, I'm not giving you any more. And I'm throwing you out because you were violent, and I don't want that in my house anymore. You showed that you did not change. You give them, these are consequences, and narcissists will do what they can to get away from consequences that they deserve, right? And that then only enables them more. So you have to be careful not to be an enabler for them, not to go into this guilt trip, right? Not to be susceptible to their guilt trips. So be careful, very careful of that. Be very aware if you start to feel guilty, if you start to feel bad for them, if they'll say, well, you're just a horrible, mean person. You don't care about people. That's a guilt trip. They attack your character, all right? They attack who you identify as. You identify as a caring, loving person, they will attack that because they're trying to guilt you and manipulate you to doing and getting what they want, all right? Charlotte, good to see you. Let me see here, you guys, what else is being said. Oh, he says, I had a midlife crisis and pretended to be a narc in a town full of narcs. I remember when you said that. I got rich people that have suffered this abuse laugh and gave me expensive hand-me-downs. It pays being a narc. Yeah, but it's dangerous, Obi. You don't want to play with narcissists, even with their own rules and manipulating them. Now, in arguing with a narcissist, there is a way where, I don't know that we win, but we can get our way by conceding certain things to the narcissist so they think that they're in control, right? So that they think that we agree that they're right, and yet they'll still do the things that we wanted them to do, okay? Trying to think of an example of that, where the narcissist is throwing a fit and they're convinced that you were the one who was wrong, you're the one who messed up whatever happened last week, right? Whatever you were supposed to do and you messed it up. Now they're yelling at you about that, but then you can just say, you know what? Yeah, so what you can agree to that and they'll think they won. And then you go, well, then what should we do now? And then they think, okay, well, even though you messed it up, this is what we're going to do now. And then you move on. You're like, okay, no big deal, right? You actually win because they stop going through crazy town with you. You just don't want to go through that crazy mess. Um, but here's the deal, you guys. When you're in a relationship with people like this, don't stay. Don't stay. It's just not worth it, okay? It's going to compile, by the way, all those accusations, all those times that you did concede, they're going to use that as proof that they're always right and you're always wrong. Um, it only works for a certain point of time, for a certain period of time. But then it will snowball on you and you're going to get smothered by it because they'll use that as evidence against you. So that kind of brings us to another manipulation, right? Oh, okay. For some reason, my phone just said to restart and update.